Sean.
Are you phishing me?
No, but I think about lately, twice the Colosseum in Rome. I helped a few Spanish prisoners. And some, I don't know, been offered a lot of things. And I click.
A lot of things.
I just click.
There you go. You just click it. There's a sticker here. There was a sticker.
I know,
we all went.
We had JJ. Everybody took the stickers. Say, don't click on S something. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today.
We're going to talk about phishing today, and it's funny. I did a post the other day on LinkedIn that I like to listen to music from different parts of the world to get inspired. I also like to put on local TV stations, which in my post it happened to be a TV station playing local music, which was really cool. In between that was a show on phishing, real phishing, and the techniques they were describing. The tension and the lures,
the line, and
very technical, and not unlike phishing with a PH.
Absolutely.
That depending on what you're trying to catch, you can use certain techniques and apply certain pressures, and so I'm assuming we're going to touch on some of that kind of stuff today with the research that Bec and Benji have done and continue to do. Before we do that, though, maybe a few words about each of you. You have the Bec and Benji show, or is it the Benji and Bec show podcast? What is that?
There was no contention about that, was there? This kind of was a bit more
ladies first, always.
Our podcast is called Bites with Bec and Benji, and we talk to cyber experts on different domains of cybersecurity, and we always kind of bring it back to how that generally starts off with phishing and things like that. But yeah,
I think the thing I really enjoy about our podcast is we're not really positioning ourselves as the experts across all these domains of cyber. So we're very much taking that kind of curious lens, being able to engage with these experts that have worked in the field for 20, 30 years and get their insights on that very specific area of cyber, whether it be digital forensics incident response, whether it be ransomware and extortion, and we get a bit of a deep insight into their world, and we can convey that to our audiences. So that's the thing I've learned so much just talking to people that know stuff that I wish I knew.
It's such a great education.
So
just
we were just talking about that on our way here, and how we've done, I don't know, thousands for sure podcasts, and I don't come from cybersecurity at all. I come from sociology, and all I know about cybersecurity is because I talk to people that know a lot about cybersecurity.
Absolutely, and when you find people that are into it, I think they're happy to talk about it. They're just, you're interested? Let me give you everything I know. So it's one of those industries where you can learn a lot, because I think people are very open to sharing their experiences, but also their motivations, their approaches.
Yeah.
Well, the topic's never ending as well. There's just so many places to go with it.
Yeah, but it's kind of like if you're selling, health insurance or medications. I mean, everybody's going to need it in a way.
Yeah, we're an essential service now.
Exactly. And talking about meeting cool people, this is where we are. We are in Melbourne. If you haven't noticed from their accent, we're not in Italy. We are in Melbourne. Yeah, you could think that from my accent.
Did you pick up a Melbourne accent?
I don't know how to do that. But we're here for the Australia Cyber Conference. We are day 3, and you guys got to have a session. So tell us about that.
We did. So yesterday we had a session in one of the rooms here, and our topic was stranger danger and how your digital footprint can be used against you, can lead to all the phishing we've been talking about.
Particularly in the age of AI that we find ourselves in, we were very much focusing on the profiling aspect being used in training models to use against your likeness, like voice cloning, cheap fakes, deep fakes, and how your most valuable asset is your trusted identity. So people can use that information both against you, but against people that trust you to convince them that they're dealing with you, ultimately to achieve a scammer's goals. So we very much focus, and to tie it to the phishing aspect, and that human psychology aspect of how people perceive situations, how they respond to situations, and really adding in those kind of cognitive breaks to be like, there's something sus about this. So I should interrogate it a bit more. So we very much like to draw it back to that, because technical controls are great, but it's ultimately always going to be a human at the end of it. So
hacking a human is generally like what the scammers are trying to do these days.
So I like that quote that says we have prehistoric brain and medieval institutions and very futuristic technology, but we still react
with that animal
based
brain.
on instinct
Yeah.
and based on urgency and certain time of the year, and so that's what is being leveraged. And do you feel like technology, AI in particular, is actually helping on that aspect of the psychology, or only on the preparation and research and translation of the perfect email, carve in the perfect email?
I mean, it starts off with that. So I think with generative AI, it's a tool that we use, scammers use, and it can really improve your communication skills, because in the old days there was misspellings and things that were not quite right that a lot of people started to spot, and these days it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but it can also automate things and send out a lot more phishing emails than a single person could in a day. But the other part is very personalized, and if you get to the higher kind of stakes ones like deepfakes and things like that, you're in a whole new ball game, and it can trigger the emotions in your victim. If you're looking at your child or your mother or someone that you really trust. But I think to your point, our brains haven't caught up with it. We're too busy having fun with a new toy that we have forgotten that there is a consequence. So there's two sides of it. The scammers are seeing that consequence and seeing an opportunity, whereas we're still having fun with it.
Right.
I think it's a Damocles sword situation a little bit, in that there's obviously huge benefit to be derived from AI, connectivity, the democratization of freedom of expression, creativity, things like that. But for me, it's the barrier to entry has basically been obliterated. So now it's down to the only thing separating you and a scammer is, should I do that? And if you opt on that side of, I'm going to give that a go, there'll be a bot that'll teach you how to do it. There'll be another phishing service you could buy and subscribe to. You can even get referral points for referring other scammers to those sites. So the kind of cybercrime, literally.
Frequent scammer points.
go to the Virgin Islands and stuff. But it's definitely one of those things where I think the scale is just getting a bit. The barrier to entry is gone, and then the scale is also getting much higher. So once you would see phishing emails go to 1,000 people and they'd all be the same email. Now it's being highly personalized to whatever they've uncovered about you, or changing that urgency to fit your workplace, your work culture. If you work from home, or if you work from remotely, if you work from home or if you work from the office, they'll target those types of things. So for me, it's about the scale and the personalization aspect being streamlined. Yeah. You don't need to know how to socially engineer someone. These tools will teach you how to do that.
And we've heard it a couple times already in a few of the conversations, and it was mentioned again here today, digital footprint. And I think it would have been hard years ago to paint a picture, a full foot, if you will, or 2 feet, of a person's being online, where tools probably today can help paint a pretty good picture almost in real time. Yesterday's footprint looks different than today's, right? Am I in the sand or am I out in the mountains? How does that do we understand as individuals the footprint we're putting out there, and as organizations responsible for our employees and our customers, what that footprint looks like?
It's a great question. I think that generally, particularly of our generation, we're in the social media age of we share a lot of things, and to me, it's more about the medium now that you're sharing. If you're putting videos that are publicly available, podcasts that are publicly available,
your voice
is immediately an asset that you know can be leveraged against you, because it's easy to train a voice on 30 seconds of dialogue, let alone thousands of podcasts. So to me, it's about what are you putting out and how public is that, because these individuals don't go through looking through individual profiles. They're aggregating information and then using scripting or AI to kind of deploy the actual payloads, the phishing, the malware, whatever it might be. So in a lot of ways, I think it's about being aware, taking the adversarial stance of, if I posted this and I was a scammer and I wanted to use this against me, how would I do it? And then if you can think of 2 or 3 reasons, maybe don't share it publicly. You know, there are many tools on social media that allow you to do things to close friends only, to only trusted individuals. So for me, it's about the public media. Is these models are very readily accessible and can train on public data. So it's just one of those things where the more you're mapped what can be used against you, the more aware you'll be of it manipulating you when you're confronted with that situation.
But then you've got kids who grew up with TikTok and Snapchat, and they don't know any other way of communicating or sharing, and they're hyper sharing as well. You know, every minute of the day, it's like, I just did this, or you know, I'm off to see my friends and do this. They're live tweeting their locations. Yeah, and they don't know who their friends' friends are, or their friends of friends of friends, and you know, that comes out like a spider web across the world, and not every single one of those people in that chain is going to have your best interests at heart. So if they know your current location, things that you like, your friends' names, you know, those kids become very vulnerable very quickly.
And the family and the indirect using
what do your parents do
your
for a living?
voice to
What access
contact
do they
your
have?
parents because they do not have access to their voice or their information, but there is that proximity that come into place.
So if my family's watching, my code word is sour kiwi.
It's a good one. Yeah, my family and I have a code word. You know, it's just one of the things. I'm conscious my voice is online. I'm not necessarily paranoid that anyone's going to target me specifically, but I'm aware that there is a platform for someone to do that should they have the intent. So we have a safe word employed, and I'm not going to share mine. But it's one of those things where the technical controls are great. We absolutely need technical controls, but the skepticism that comes from the individuals, that end person that is the object of the scammer's desire to get you to do the thing, that ultimately is a human problem. And the only way to combat those things are cognitive awareness, verifying things, being highly skeptical of anyone kind of interacting with you. And it's not necessarily about being rude, but just about being conscious of not everyone's got your best interest at heart.
Well, it's kind of like the old days where if you ring a bell and you live in a building,
you look through the peephole first,
right? I mean, before you ring in, you want to know who is that you. Who is who?
That's
right?
why caller ID was so popular when it came out. It's like, I don't have to answer the phone and get a telemarketer anymore. I can see that it's my mum and ignore that one too.
Yeah, and now they spoof that, so we're even.
The cat and mouse, constant cat and mouse. And so if they adapt how they manipulate your psychology, we have to be more aware of that psychology being manipulated.
And we had the first podcast 2 days ago was with JJ. She had a talk with Daisy as well on the 10 skills that are not technical for training. And of course, she deals with kids as well. And we started the whole conversation on how it's not really training in terms of memorizing things, learning, taking the test. It's a cultural thing. And she used, I've said this a few times because I think it makes a lot of sense. The learning at a young age to start how to cross the street, live in the street, ride the bike, and start learning the rule of the road at a younger age. But then you only get the car after you do a driving test and when you're experienced. If you didn't have any experience until when you're 16 or 18, depending where you live, and they're like, all right, here's the book, here's the car, here's the keys.
Off you go.
How are you going to
100%
internalize all of that, right?
And in LA, you have to look left, right, left when you're crossing the street. And here, you look right, left, right.
100%.
Right?
And culture changes the cognition bias that you inherently have to some of these things. But yeah, absolutely. I think when we look at the idea that people should be told, use MFA and use a password manager without explicitly understanding what's the purpose, what is it doing to help me. I can use a password manager and use the same password for every website, so it's just an autofiller. It's not really the point of a password manager. So understanding, to your point, the reason why, and then applying it in a real
The consequences?
The consequences, you do the driving test before you get your card. You have to prove competency in being able to do the thing. So there is a degree of, we don't really do that with cyber as much. We kind of just rely on the fact that people will engage if they want to engage. And as a community, we're only really as secure as each individual in the community.
And this whole thing on the news at the moment of restricting kids till they're 16 to use social media.
Yeah, we spoke about that,
It's a great idea, but it's kind of too little too late because we don't know how it's going to be enforced, if at all. And I think it's mostly a revenue-raising thing for finding these platforms when it's found out, and who's reporting it, who's doing anything like that. But you're suddenly taking away something that has been seen as a right to these kids their whole lives. To now be told, okay, no, you're not mature enough for this.
And the magic, what is it, 14 or 16? I can't remember.
16, yeah.
So magically, everyone's safe
Overnight.
at 16,
Yes.
right? Yeah. No.
Suddenly, all the scammers can't get to me, and I'm
Midnight
fully,
on your birthday, you are mature enough.
Well,
to have
actually, you're
social
even
media.
more vulnerable.
Because you've not
It's the
been
same
prepared.
thing like the car. You know how much are you going to freak out if you've never rode a bike before, or a motorcycle, or
Oh,
I
look,
don't know.
this person's messaging me. I might just start
Yeah.
engaging with them without like checking who
Having
they
any experience.
Yeah, it's a gradual education that you can do. Now, when it comes to training in a corporation, in a business environment, I think there is a big problem there too. Like, here's all the thing that you need to check once a month, once a year,
Here's
whatever.
your compliance list.
Yeah,
Please follow it.
and then people don't do it.
100%. I think security as a culture is incredibly important. And when I say things like that, I mean employees being empowered to, even in the face of authority or urgency, not feel like they're doing the business a disservice by slowing something down, by asking for the appropriate verifications. And I think people get caught up in the, we're here to do business, I gotta get it done, my boss is telling me, my CFO is telling me. Your CFO will actually appreciate it more when you confronted a scammer asking them to verify themselves than if you just verified your CEO and they knew that you were doing a good job. We often use the example of tailgating in our workplace. And Bec has a story about.
When you start at our workplace, you're told, okay, always question who's coming in behind you. If they don't have their pass out and they're not scanning their key card, you should ask them who they are, especially if you don't if you don't recognize them. And it happened to me. I couldn't find my pass. I'm, hunting around my handbag full of mysteries and junk and all that kind of stuff.
We'll show pictures later.
That's a whole other podcast. And this young man I've never seen before, he walks in ahead of me. He's got his pass. He's, got it ready. Scans it, walks in. I'm like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to wait for the reception to let me in. So I walk in behind him and he just flips around and goes, hi, what's your name? And I was like, oh, my name is Bec. What's yours? And he was like, where's your pass? And I was like, oh. It's in here somewhere, I swear. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll wait. And he just stands there, and I'm like,
Right.
finally find it. Lets me in, and I'm full of rage.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm just
I
trying to get
belong here.
in. I've been working here for like a year. I'm allowed to, I don't say all that. I'm just a bit flustered. But then I just realized he's new. He's a new associate. He's just had a security training, and he was told it is an empowering thing to ask someone, what is your name and what is your business here? So I was really proud of him in that moment. So it was a roller coaster of emotions going through that.
Yeah.
And even in the instance where you might not feel comfortable, simply alerting someone that it might be more appropriate, the reception, the security, but being empowered to act on those, that seems a bit sus. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems a little sus. And instead of just putting that to a side and hoping for the best, actually acting on those things. So for me, when it comes down to organizations, it's about understanding that being security conscious is not you being rude, it's not you trying to be hard to work with, but you're actually trying to do the right thing to secure everyone. So I also think having cultures that often report phishing or celebrate people that are often identifying things like phishing or bringing noteworthy points of cyber case studies to their organization, they bring people more into the thing because they understand why they're being asked to do all these cyber things. For me, it's all about the what's in it for me as the individual. You can give me 10 lists. I'll probably pick what I think is relevant to me.
And convenient. Because if you talk to people and say, okay, the top 2 things you have to do is use a password manager with unique passwords for each account and then install MFA, it's like, oh. So every single time I log into this thing, I have to use my biometrics, I have to get sent a text, I have to do all this stuff, and it's like I have to cast a spell and face south on a full moon just to open up my banking app. And it's like, well, yeah, otherwise you're going to lose all your money. But that inconvenience has to be built into just your way of working.
Yeah, but you don't have a problem when you get to your bank, given that somebody still goes to the bank. been going through 2 glass door and wait in between, and
Yeah.
now, get on a plane and nobody's bitching if, I got to do the scan and here's my
That's
passport, because you
normal,
want to
yeah.
be secure.
Yeah.
Right? But when it comes to doing things online, I always say you can't touch it, it's intangible,
Because
and
people
all of
think
a sudden
it's
it's
not
like
physical.
it's
so
like
it's
I'm
out of the
casting a
mind.
spell,
Yeah.
and everything should work.
And just hoping for the best. But yeah, people are like very protective of their physical security, and rightly so. But online security is just such a otherworldly thing to people. It's somebody else's problem. It's not going to happen to me.
Beck and I often refer to the concept of bringing back stranger danger online.
Yeah.
Having grown up in the 90s, you were always told, like, beware of strangers, be skeptical, and people have seemingly a much greater propensity for trusting individuals online than in the physical space, I think, due to what you say, like seeing the body language and all that unspoken stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely is, we had Alistair McGibbon on our podcast at one point talking about ransomware and cyber extortion, and the analogy that he put forward that I've repeated endlessly because I love it so much is if we were all in our houses and we had criminals rattling our windows and tapping on doors and finding holes in our apartments to try to get in, we would riot in the streets. That's happening online all the time, every day. There are scammers and hackers knocking on certain networks and perimeters and things. So we just don't see it, but it's constantly happening.
Yeah.
The digital world is under as much kind of stress testing by these people as the physical world would be if we didn't have those barriers. So it's about the understanding why those things are being asked of you, understanding how that helps you, and then you're probably more likely to engage with those behaviors.
It's to replace that biofeedback we get from having a feeling, when you meet someone that doesn't have the best of intentions. Sometimes people have that intuition when they meet someone on the street. They're like, don't like your vibe. I'm not sure if I should engage with this person. But you don't have that. None of those things get those senses tingling, online.
So you mentioned that part of the title of your session. So as we wrap here, I'm sure we touched on a lot of things from the session, but not specifically. But were there any moments connecting with the audience that struck you as you're doing your presentation or after people came up to you? Is there anything that came out of it that said, oh, I didn't think about that, or wow, somebody really took this message away with them and they're going to apply it to whatever?
I think there were some pretty good questions that we got. One was, how will AI change the role of a CISO? I'm not a CISO. I'm relatively new in the cyber industry. Yeah, well, but I do think, based on a lot of the reading I've been doing around the space, because it's fascinating to me, is at this current stage, what awareness training seems to be leaning towards with deep fake training and things of that nature is identifying things in the visual that can show that it's a deep fake. That seems to be the wrong approach almost, because not only are people not video experts or audio experts, so you're asking them to do something that is a very kind of niche skill, but in addition to that, the technology won't be like that in 6 months, in a year. So we're actually training bad habits in a lot of ways. What the study kind of points to is more around deepfake mitigation. So planning out all in the organization, all the assets that could be used for a deepfake, similar to what I was saying about the social media, the media you put out. Those things could be used to train deepfakes. These are the results of those deepfakes. That's how the process works. The awareness for how your perception is being manipulated as the organizational culture, rather than just being like, that means I'm being manipulated. There won't be anything to point to, is what I'm saying. It's going to be very human-based verification. It will be things like, in our talk, we reference a deepfake case for the CEO of Ferrari. He had an elaborate, sophisticated phishing scam followed by a live deepfake. Yeah. And it was right at the kind of cusp of getting...
He's about to press send.
And he goes to the scammer, I need to verify you. Can you tell me the book that you recommended to me last week? None of the technical controls were sufficient enough in that instance. He registered the domain, he was on the call. It was purely a human control. Wasn't even a pre-sorted out thing of message
No
me
safe
signal.
word,
It was just a moment that he reflected on,
Yeah, it clicked and said,
and that busted the whole thing open. And
Marco couldn't remember the book.
there you go. And from the scammers, I mean, they're training the voice, they're training the likeness. It's a body of work associated to doing that thing that just got busted by one question. You know, so to me, that's the takeaway is the human element will be what you need to focus on to identify these things, and less about the eyes aren't matching in the right direction and things of that nature, because it won't be like that in 6 months.
No, they'll be fantastic in 6 months, and that'll just double every. You know, it's
So
going to be exponentially amazing.
I want to touch on one more thing. See?
One more question for me. Look at
One
that.
more thing.
You're stealing my
Steve Jobs
my motto.
style. One more thing. So I can see, though, technology coming into place to kind of reminding us human to think a little bit. You know, the old Microsoft Clippy. I don't know why it came out so much, but you know, it's kind of funny.
Everyone
But
loves it now,
whatever
it's nostalgia.
in your augmented reality glasses or your phone or your watch, like, or when the email comes in, I can see AI being on your side. So you know, well, given you get the permits to have
To
the
use
email
it.
read, but like, maybe you want to double check this more.
Maybe it can detect it.
And I'm
You
not
can use
saying
it
it's
against
going to
it.
do it itself, but at least reminding you, kind of like the car, right? You know, hey, it's flashing because in your blind
Yeah,
spot.
there's a blind spot. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
I think two things on that. Absolutely. The problem is people get used to seeing the same things. An example I can give to you that exists now is when you get emails from outside your organization on Outlook, you get a little banner. This came from outside your organization. We do phishing training, and people within our organization in the cyber industry click on things that are the domain with a suspect domain. It has the banner. We've got like our banner inside, but people still ignore those telltale warning signs. That is the machine saying you should be suspect of this. It's not coming from where you think it is.
Well, also because sometimes, depending on like what role you have, you look at that and go, I think there's something broken about my Outlook, so I'm going to continue
You
to
can
ignore
justify
this.
it in a lot of
Yeah.
ways to yourself. You know,
That shouldn't be there because it's annoying to me, so I'm going to completely erase it from my field of vision. So it's
So I agree with you, leveraging machine learning and AI to kind of be our guide on the side to point out the things that we might just ignore. The problem is people actively engaging with that, right? It says payment and urgency. All my stuff says payment and urgency, ignore that. Well, this one was specifically
my job.
more urgent.
Urgent payments.
Exactly.
but I see it more humanized. So not just the banner, not just like something that it's kind of
actually
like the chat
engages with
GPT
you.
that you interact with. You choose the voice, you choose the tone, and
like
you're
an assistant. It can say,
Yeah,
hey,
it's your assistant. Hey,
I
bro.
want a deep fake
I've
of
had
the
a look at your
CEO
email.
saying,
Yeah.
"You're about to click on this, Jim. Do you really value your?
Do you really
position
wanna
in
think
this?"
about your job right now.
Yeah, or like it plays a sound that you know that you like.
Dum,
or
dum, dum.
There are a few vendors.
da-na-na, like a Metallica
Exactly.
song.
That would be good, actually.
Dun, dun, dun. There are a few vendors that are moving to that kind of side of things. Our company is one of them that we're moving into a bit more of a space of highlighting and doing text analysis on cognitive biases. So highlighting things like payments or a vendor name is misspelled or what have you, or doesn't align to a vendor email. So I believe the space is moving to a place where we are trying to give people as much, I guess, analysis up front of a thing prior to just letting them act on it.
Right.
I think people are definitely more conscious of that. Whether or not, you know, it gets widely adopted by organizations is ultimately the question, right?
Plus, it will be a mouse and
Cat and mouse situation,
Yeah,
right? Because as
for
soon
sure.
as they realize that the words urgent payment in 7 days gets flagged on every email, they'll adapt.
that'll be
their
another one.
methodology. Yeah, exactly.
Just stop paying your bills. I mean,
Yeah.
then you can avoid the whole situation.
I think it's about reminding yourself to be skeptical, question when people reach out to you, particularly on the internet. Most people don't have your best interests at heart, particularly on the internet.
Yeah.
They have their own best interests.
Yes.
They have their own. Well, this was fun. Always
Super
great
fun.
to have unscripted conversation like this. That actually I hope that inspire people to think a little bit more.
Fellow podcasters are always a good time.
I know.
Thank you both for having us.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
the
so
chat.
much. It's been great.
Of course. And stay tuned. We got a few more conversation here in Melbourne. Check their podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Stay
Bec and Benji. Bites with
Bites with Bec and Benji.
There we go.
There you go.
Bites.
And on location with Sean and Marco. We're still here.
We're still here. A few more to go. And day 3 and yeah, lots of stuff being published over the next few days. So stay tuned, subscribe, share with your friends and enemies, and we'll see you soon.
And don't click.
Don't click.
I mean, not on the
Shit.
weird stuff.